our society as a member or as a prospective member. So with saying that, I would like to ask Davina to give us a short invocation.
Let us pray in our own way. Father, thank you for today and being together virtually to share and learn. We give thanks for our ancestor American farmers and present-day farmers who have contributed and contribute so much to our country's well-being. We are ever grateful. Amen.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce to you Lori Baracchio Kenny. She is our Pennsylvania ambassador. And Lori, if you'll just give us a half a minute of how you selected Rob, and then we will go in. I'll introduce Bill Martin, and then we'll let him take over.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Rob is one of our farmers from Pennsylvania, but not only that, he is part of our milk board here in the state of Pennsylvania, and he plays a key role in ensuring that milk is not only present and part of the state, but as you may or may not know, milk production is very important and very important in the economy in the state of Pennsylvania. Currently, we're ranked 8th in milk production in the United States, and he helps play a key role in that. He helps regulate milk, regulate the pricing of milk in the state of Pennsylvania, and he actually plays a key role. He was actually appointed to this position by the governor, and he's going to share quite a bit of information about his role, share quite a bit about his farm, which is a magnificent farm here in the state of Pennsylvania, one of 59, I believe there's almost 50,000 farms, and he plays a very key role. He's going to talk about the Pennsylvania Milk Board. He's also going to give a brief overview about the National Milk Board. So we're very delighted to have him as part of our meeting today and share his wealth of knowledge about the milk industry. So Rob, thank you again so much from the bottom of my heart to be part of our meeting today, because this really plays a key role in farming, again, past, present, and future. So thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Lori. I'm going to turn this over to our marvelous moderator and national board member, Bill Martin, who is now
Hey everybody,
dark.
I am reporting live today in Rehoboth Beach.
I'm going to bring it up right now.
Okay, great. All righty. Well, welcome everyone. It's when I quite honestly, the contact came through our executive secretary, and she sent it out, and hadn't really heard of this organization. But when I read about it, I thought, well, sure, I can talk to those folks about dairying and milk and our farm and so on. And as I learned more, the enthusiasm is just amazing, and the people have certainly been wonderful to deal with, Lori and Janice and others, and so I'm happy to be here. So I guess to get started today, this is an overview of our farm, our main operation, and this is located, as you can see, right on the Susquehanna River. We've been here in this area since about 1966. I'll get into a little bit more, not at this exact location, but this area. We were kind of next door and moved down the road as we expanded our dairy operation. But we've been, like I said, we've been here. We have great neighbors. The river is a nice neighbor, gives us an opportunity also to practice, conservation to the nth degree. We are all no-till. We follow all the practices that are necessary, to have good conservation. I guess if you can head on the next slide. Yeah, the three owners of Star Rock Farms, My cousin Abe Barley is the CEO. His main focus is cropping and maintenance. I'm the CFO, handle the financial and the livestock that's not dairy. And then my brother Tom is a dairy manager. Moving on, the next slide there. There's the three of us. As you're looking at it, I'm on the far right, the tallest one. And then my brother Tom's in the middle. My cousin Abe's there on the left. And, you know, my cousin Abe's the oldest. I'm second. My brother's the youngest, but we're all within about 4 years of each other. So.
And what are the names of the cattle behind you?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. You can start to name them yourselves. But they all do have names because they are all registered. We have all registered Holsteins as well as Jerseys. In this picture here, it's just a little older, but we do now are up to about 10 to 15% Jerseys. And all our cattle are registered. They do have a name, and you know they have you know, paperwork, and we're very proud of our dairy operation. I mean, our cows are treated very well. We have, you know, clean. The cows are very clean because I'll go through how that process works. But yeah, so I can't say that I could go down through and name them, but the computer checks them 3 times a day as they come into the parlor. So move on to our next slide then. So, you know, a little bit of history. This is the original operation. Now, this is not where the dairy is now. This is actually where my aunt lives currently. And it was bought in 1923 by my grandfather. And then it was passed on then to my dad and uncle. So if you want to go on to the next slide, and then that shows, that's my dad on the right. So that's a little bit of a neat picture we took one time. He got on the trench silo with one of his older tractors. And there we have one of our newer tractors that are going to get a little bit more done. So as far as the history of Star Rock Farms, yeah, well, there's another picture that shows the, you know, that shows our family. And we were actually top producer finalists in 2008. And there you can see the 3 of us. We only had our boys in that picture, which is, I guess, was a little sexist because at this time, of the next generation, there's 2 girls that are part of the operation and the boys are not. So, and they're performing very well. I do have a son-in-law that's part of the operation. Like I said, I'll get on to that later. Okay, head on the next slide there. Now, before I get into this is the history of Star Rock Farms for the current generation. Let me give a little background about the original, you know, the original, I guess, the start of our operation. So I'll start with a little story my grandfather told me, and he was born in 1911. He lived to be 100, died in 2011. And he would always tell this story. So it would have been my great grandfather, I think I got that right, who was Adam Barley, walked in from Indiana. Now, I never quite got verification whether that was Indiana, Pennsylvania, or Indiana, the state. But he walked into Harrisburg, and so that would have been, you know, in the 1800s, and he became a plasterer. So he was not a farmer. He became a plasterer. I guess they had a very successful plaster business. And then my grandfather's grandfather, who was his son, and his name was Martin, and he was short. So that didn't work real well. He was shorter than all the other brothers and so on. So that didn't work real well in the family business. So he decided to, you know, go a different direction. So he walked to Lancaster County and hired on with the Neff family on a farm. And he began to work for the Neff family. And my grandfather said it like this every time. He got too close to Grammy Neff and had to get married. So that's, I guess, happened back then as it happens today. But so that's what happened. And they were married, and they continued to work on farms. And I don't know a whole lot about them, but their son, Frank Barley, would then been my great grandfather. He did work. He did work as a farmer. He worked as a he worked on the halves, meaning he didn't own the farm. It was kind of like a tenant situation. And then eventually he was able to purchase several farms and retired as a farmer. And then my grandfather, he did not have a whole lot handed to him and so on. He was one of, I think, 8 or 9 children. And so in the early to mid 20s, he I guess it would be closer to the late 20s, he started working in a silk mill. And he worked, that was pretty prevalent in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he worked in Columbia, Pennsylvania, in a silk mill, and then began to look to try to get a farm. And so in 1920, I think it was 29, I might have said 23 or 29, he purchased a farm and continued to work at the silk mill, eventually added some acreage, started milking cows, eventually was able to leave the silk mill, and he worked there. And then, of course, my dad and uncle, his sons were, I think my uncle was born in 1939, my dad was born in 1945, and then in the mid 60s, they started farming on their own, doing some renting, and then eventually they purchased the properties from my grandfather, and they began to then milk cows in the early 70s, and eventually expanded that operation till the late 70s. They were milking over 500 cows, which really was a lot at that point. And then my dad became a state legislator, and they began to exit the dairy industry and had beef cattle and were farming crops. And then so that takes us to 1992, where then my cousin Abe and I took over the operation from my cousin's dad, as well as my dad, or my uncle and my dad. We purchased 1,200 steers and the equipment that came along with it, and rented 1,900 acres of farmland, which 1,200 of that was owned by our parents. And then in 93, my brother Tom comes in, begins milking cows on a rented farm. We weren't quite sure that growing up, Tom was always the one that kind of ran from work. So we weren't sure that we wanted to bring him into the operation, but he always loved cows, and he ended up doing quite well, working hard. There's kind of a strange story behind all this. I went to Penn State, I have a dairy science major, animal science, but a focus on dairy science. I was on the judging team. I was president of the Dairy Science Club. So I was very involved there. Tom started at Penn State, he was also a wrestler, a really good wrestler. So he was on the Penn State wrestling team. He went there a year, he's never liked being away from home. So he transferred back to Millersville University and got a business degree, and ended up actually being the only All-American wrestler, Division I All-American wrestler for Millersville University. He finished 8th in the nation and top 8 or All-American. So, but the funny part is, I have a dairy science degree. He has a business degree. I handle the finances. He handles the dairy. So that makes perfect sense, I think, in this world. So then in 1995, we purchased our what was our current heifer farm. We also have calves there as well, and began milking a little over 250 cows. And then in 2003, 2004 is when we built the first part of the picture that I first showed you. First part of our operation began milking 800 cows, and we actually then formed what was called Star Rock Dairy. I guess I should back up a minute. Everybody says, well, where does the Star Rock name come from? If you looked at that original picture off to the right, there's a point that goes out to the river that was called Star Rock. And so we didn't just pull it out of the hat. We actually have a Star Rock on our farm. I guess before the railroad had gone through, that rock outcropping actually went out over the river and had a bunch of jagged points and looked like a star. That was way before my time, even before my grandfather's time. So I'll move on to the next slide. So then from 2004 to 2014, we gradually expanded our facilities to reach about 1,450 cows and 1,100 heifers. And then also during that time in 2013, we purchased a 2,000-acre farm in York County. Brogue, Pennsylvania is south of Red Lion in York, Pennsylvania. And that had a large grain facility, and we began to expand our operation, fairly extensively. We formed, in 2016, we formed Green Valley Swine LLC. We're 90% owners, and we have a 10% management company that are owners of a swine operation. We had purchased a property with a sow unit on it, and that was then leased to a integrator, actually Hatfield. Hatfield Meats, their growing arm. And as the facility got a little older, they didn't want to manage it, but gave us an opportunity to market our hogs through them. And it's been a successful partnership with our management partner. Take a little look at what's, where we're at now. The next generation, my daughter came in 2016. She's mainly in the office. She's pregnant with her third child right now. So her time is somewhat limited, but she continues to be an excellent, accounting assistant, works with our controller. My son-in-law, Mike Lugood, he comes from south of Pittsburgh. His dad was a coal miner till he was a steel worker. So he's as Pittsburgh as they come. And he met Amelia at Penn State. He has a mechanical engineering degree. And when they got married, he wanted to come work on the farm. And I said, well, why would you, with your engineering degree, come work on the farm? I can't pay you enough. But he kept pushing, and I kept saying, well, what are you going to bring us? And he worked hard. He's come on. He learned in a hurry. He's in charge of our scouting. He's in charge of all of our computer, like the GPS, the computer analysis of all our cropping. He does an excellent job, really smart, and he's a great part of the operation. My cousin Abe's daughter had just joined the operation this spring. She has a agronomy degree from Delaware University. So, she has come on and really taken hold. And so we're blessed. And then on top of that, Abe's son, Jack, my son, Ethan, and daughter, Laurel, and then my brother Tom's son, Jonah and Colt, all work part-time. Now, my son, Ethan, is actually out of college. He's working in the farm insurance industry. It's something I encouraged both my daughter and son-in-law. They worked away for a while, and my son as well, to work away for a while, get some experience outside. I think his intentions are to come back. He just got married this fall, so we'll see how that goes. He married a great girl. I guess it kind of depends on how their marriage goes, whether they take that step to come back in or not. But the door's open. But we certainly wouldn't want to force that as well. So, and I think it's the same for the other ones as well. We do have my cousin has a daughter who's well on her way to a medical degree, and then my wife and I have a daughter that's a senior at the University of Pittsburgh in speech pathology, and she plans to go on for a medical degree in that as well. So I guess you either become a farmer or a doctor in our family. But I guess that's not quite right. Tom's oldest daughter is actually down in Philadelphia, and she's in the fashion industry. So, but anyway, so you want to head on to the next slide. This is a little, kind of a background of what we have right now. We're 1,570 cows, about 1,400 of them go through the parlor every day, 1,540 heifers. And we've just started here. We didn't just start. The calves coming on the ground. So we started about 10 months ago, breeding some of our Holsteins to Wagyu bulls with Wagyu semen, and we're going to finish them out. We have a good market for them, and they retain that great marbling that that the Wagyu have. We've done some work and some research on that, and like I said, we have a partner that's going to be buying them, and so we'll see how that goes. I'll have to keep you updated on that. Our cows produce about 5 million gallons of milk per year. Our cropping operation, about 13,000 acres. About 7,000 of that is corn. About 2,100 of that is wheat, and then there's about 3,100 acres of full season soybeans. Some of the wheat is double cropped. That's why some of the acres add up a little more to 13,000. We also have about 200 acres of hay. Our hog operation, we finish about 90,000 hogs a year, and that goes to, like I said, we have a marketing agreement with Hatfield. We have our hogs grown. The sow units in York County, and we own that, but we finish our hogs on other people's farms just like that, just like a lot of the other integrators do. Additionally, at that farm we had purchased in York County, there's about 2,400 head custom feedlot there. And we have two customers that we feed for. One is JBS, of course, the largest beef packer in the world. And then the other one is Rosetta Farms, which is a kind of a natural, they do not implant their animals. They know they're source verified. So we have a separate location where we keep them. And I know that their kind of claim to fame is they supply all the beef for the Orioles. And on top of that, we manage about 4,300 acres of land and buildings that we own in Lancaster and York County. That's, of course, provides our kind of our base, but also is a blessing and a challenge. On the next slide. Here's just a view of our dairy barn, a better view than with the three of us there. You can see, looking down through there, it's very clean and open. We actually had designs to build this barn with forced ventilation, kind of like a chicken house. It was kind of an idea that everybody was looking at. And then we got up there in the hill and there was always a breeze, and we're so glad that we went this way. We have very little issues with heat problems over the summer. We have those fans that you can see, as well as a sprinkler system. And the cows certainly have had very little issues. They're milked 3 times a day in a parallel parlor. Every time they go to milk, their alleyway is flushed, meaning that there's a water tank at the opposite end of this building, and there's a valve opens up and a wave of water comes down through and cleans the alleyway, spick and span. And then that is then sent into what is called a sand lane, because we bed with sand. Of course, a lot of sand gets out in the alleyway. And in that sand lane, there's a block as the water comes out of the pipe, causes that water to kind of swirl and drops out the sand, and we reclaim about 80% of our sand. The manure is then run through a separation system where we get out a significant amount of the solids, which most of that goes to a neighboring mulch operation where they blend that in with wood mulch to make a great mulch product. And then of course the liquid we spread on our fields for fertilizer. And then this is you can see there on the picture, this is where our cows are. Now we have our calves at another location and our heifers at even another location. Not always the most ideal, but it's kind of worked out well for us. I'll move on to the next picture. This is just a quick look at our feedlot. This barn's a 1/4 mile long, and for the most part, we do have beef type breeds in here. As I mentioned, we will be using part of these barns for our Wagyu Holstein crosses in the future. Move on to our next slide. All right. I guess before I move on, is there I don't know how we want to do this. Do you want to ask questions on the farm?
Yes.
Or
yes.
wait till everything to the end?
Now, questions now? Do we have any questions now for the farm? If so, unmute yourself, please. Any questions?
I'm also looking in the chat. If you'd like to put your questions in chat, we have had some comments. I love this is a family-oriented business. And they're loving your stories. So great to hear from the farmers. They love the stories. But if you have any questions, if you don't want to speak out, you're more than welcome to put your questions in chat. And I am more than happy to ask the questions for you if you'd like. I'm looking in chat now. Let's see.
Yeah,
if
one thing while you're looking there, one thing I did want to add, and we do have between all our operations have about 60 employees, and that's something we pride ourselves on is how we take care of our employees. I mean, my father and uncle, they always had a strategy. They always took very good care of their employees, always paid health insurance back when no farmers paid health insurance. And that's back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
And
Right.
we've always had good health insurance. We currently have a plan because of our size. We actually have a consortium we go through, and essentially we're self-funded. We do have backup if we have a real large claim. We do it. Each person does have essentially we have a $50,000 per person deductible, but the rest of it is handled by Star Rock Farms. The employees actually only have a 500/1,000 deductible. And so they have very good insurance, and we have a 401k that we participate in. We have paid vacation and paid holidays. Now I'm going to tell you, our guys work more hours, and we do not. We only pay overtime to the field guys on the weekends. In Pennsylvania, we're not required to pay overtime. So the guys often will average about between 50 to 52 hours a week over the year. But they understand that coming in that the benefits are there and that they won't be getting overtime.
Bob,
I do have some questions. Janice,
Okay.
you want me to go ahead with the questions? First of all, a great shout out from Penn State. Go Penn State.
Yep.
There you go. I do have a question from Sharon. She's from Maryland. In Maryland, we're trying to have milk substitutes labeled as such as to not compete with our dairy farmers. Are you trying to do this as well?
Oh my, yes, we're very much behind that. So if I get into the PMMB, it's been a tough road. We haven't been able to get too far, but I know here in Pennsylvania, there actually was the Senate and I think the House joined as well. I'm not sure if the governor signed on, but there was essentially a resolution passed to USDA as well as I think FDA to get that change. Now it hasn't gone anywhere yet, but we're going to continue to push. So I'm 100% behind that. I mean, if you look up at the definition of milk, it's from a lactating animal, and last time I checked, the oats and soybeans and whatever else don't lactate. So
okay. That's
certainly almonds don't lactate either. So yeah.
No, they do not. I have another question from one of our ambassadors, Sheila. Her question is 90,000 finished per year. What does finished mean?
Okay, that is the meaning. That's when they're harvested for that's how many are harvested every year, sent to Hatfield. That's the number that are sent to Hatfield. Yeah.
Okay,
Finished.
perfect.
When they say when you have a operation, you have a sow, and she's in like a farrowing unit, meaning she's either in gestation, which means she's pregnant, and then she goes to farrowing, whereas when she has the baby pigs, and then she's in farrowing for a while with her pigs, and then eventually they're weaned, and then they go to a nursery, and then from the nursery, then they go to a finishing floor, and that's kind of where the name comes from. So that's their last step before they go on then to slaughter. So it's called a finishing floor. That's just a term hog farmers use. Sorry, not everybody would understand that. So.
Thank you. That was a great question. So I have a statement, and then I have another question. First, our statement actually comes from our youth director, and she just wants to make you aware that we have amazing scholarships for college students. And you had mentioned several college students in your family. Some
Yes.
graduated, but you may have some that are coming up.
Yep.
So we just want to make you aware. We have amazing scholarships that we hand out to those in agricultural.
That crossed my mind earlier when we talked before. Yeah.
So please don't forget about us with your students
Yeah.
that are in ag related degrees. Because we do, yes, we've already.
My brother Tom's boy is a senior at Cornell. So, and I know his, my daughter's a senior. Actually, there's 3 of them that are seniors this year. The 3 youngest are seniors. All 3 of us have a senior. My daughter intends to go to a at this point, she's looking to go to like a 2-year vet tech program. It's actually local here. My brother's boy, he's not sure yet, but he's looking at possibly some ag schools for dairy, but he also wants to wrestle. And then my cousin's son, I think at this point is looking to go to one of our state schools, and I think at this point he's not interested in the farm, going to an agricultural school, but you never know. So
Okay, so we have lots. Okay, Janice Sue, we have lots of questions. So Janice Sue,
I'll make this real fast. Rob, our scholarships are approximately $2,500, and I'll get you the applications.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
That really helps, and we love graduate students. So I'll read away, Lori. Read away.
okay. So I'm getting a lot of questions about the animals, your cows, being outside. I'm assuming they aren't inside all the time, and that they do graze outside.
They do not. Our cows do not, when they're milking, do not graze. When they're dry over the summer, they do. Yes. Most of your larger operations, they're not outside. But we have cows that are in very good shape. There's nobody ever come to our farm that said, "Hey, your cows look like they're thin," or this or that. But no, they're fed a very heavy forage diet, which does include hay. It includes actually straw, it includes corn silage, it includes rye, which was harvested as a grass, and then on top of that, certainly corn, soybean meal, and other products as well. We also do something, and I didn't mention in my other comments. I had to kind of keep it, but I'll share it now. We are right next door almost to Turkey Hill. The original Turkey Hill plant. It's where, I think there is a second Turkey Hill plant in Kansas City, or that there in that area. But the original Turkey Hill plant is in Conestoga. I think they're number 3 or 4 ice cream maker in the nation. Of course, they're owned by Kroger now. There was a local family owned them, but they're now owned by Kroger. But we receive every day their milk and ice cream flush that in a trailer, and we actually feed that back to the cows, and it's been a great source of fat and sugar for our cows. And so that's just one thing we do. The other things we recycle, our hogs, and well as our steers, get ramen noodles. We receive the ramen noodles from a local plant here. We process them, remove the paper, and then we feed ramen noodles to our steers as well as our hogs. We feed some byproduct from Frito-Lay, both in York and Aberdeen, Maryland. Also feed some salad trimmings from Fresh Express. Have in the past fed some fruit. We've fed many different things in the past, but those are the main ones we have right now.
Well, I just want to say, if I wish, first of all, Turkey Hill ice cream is absolutely amazing. I don't know if y'all have an opportunity to have that outside of Pennsylvania, but
you have
Turkey Hill,
it's one of the best.
If I could live on Turkey Hill ice cream and Fritos, imagine that your cows are very well fed. So who knows? Unbelievable. It's an amazing ice cream. I did not know that. That's quite the fact. have one additional question for you. I'm getting a lot of questions about organic milk.
Yes.
And Kevin
Can you
also
give
has,
us, yeah, is there a difference between organic milk, or what is that difference between?
Okay, I will have to say, if you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have been somewhat combative because our milk is not organic. But I've certainly come around to look at organic as a choice for people. I think when you actually test the products, certainly milk is one of them. You're not going to find any difference in a testing of milk that comes from an organic cow or comes from I guess a standard normal operations. I will say in organic operation, yes, you are required to have them out on pasture. And I don't have any problem with that. That's not, for me, it's not a negative or a positive. And I look at organic as something that's a choice, and I'm all for people if they want to pay the extra cost to make that choice. But I think from feeding a hungry world standpoint at this time, organic is not all that viable. And here in Lancaster, it's even more difficult. Now, all of Lancaster isn't as hilly. If you looked at that picture, you saw our land's pretty hilly because we're kind of on the river hills. All Lancaster is not that hilly, but if you were farming organically, you would have a very difficult time farming no-till. And then you would have soil movement. And your fertilizer certainly has to be animal fertilizer because commercial fertilizer is not allowed on organic. So I do know of one particular farm in Maryland who transitioned a lot of their ground to organic and actually did not feel right and transitioned back because they could not keep up with they couldn't keep up with the conservation. They had too much soil runoff and so on. So I think it has a place. I'm not a vegetable farmer. I'm not a orchard farmer. So, that might have, because of the surface of those products, having pesticides on, there may be some science there. That's not something I'm real close to, but certainly from an animal agriculture, there's very little difference. I will tell you, you can certainly, the growing chickens organically is not too difficult. Growing hogs organically has been very difficult because hogs are very destructive to the outside. If you're required to graze the hogs, they're very destructive. It's like they dig holes. They actually cause a problem with conservation as well. And I know that if finding the market for organic pork has been a challenge. We actually were part of a group that was trying to do that. We were actually supplying some animals, and it just didn't work out. It's been a challenge, and our dairies has been able to do it. Certainly beef can do it because of the grazing and so on. And there's ways to get it done. But here in Lancaster, like I said, the biggest challenge from a cropping standpoint is the conservation.
Wow, we have a lot of interesting questions. I think what we're going to do is catch the additional questions, and then I'll get back to you on those. How about if we move forward with the presentation? This has been
good. Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. What does the PMMB do? If you go on to the next slide, well, PMMB stands for the Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board. It's a terrible name because we're really, when I say it's a terrible name, sounds like a good name, but we're not marketers of milk. We're essentially regulators of milk. It was established back in the 1930s. We established a minimum price, minimum producer price, meaning for the farmer, minimum wholesale price, and minimum retail price. We provide milk producer security, and that was ever so important here in recent times because with the bankruptcy of Dean Foods, as well as an organic company went bankrupt in Franklin County, Pennsylvania. We require all milk dealers and processors to have a bond, and in both these situations, we had to force them to exercise those bonds to get the farmers paid. And that's not the case in every state. Now, there's some states have something along that line, but there's a lot of states do not. We also take care of the farm bulk milk tank calibration, making sure that the milk tanks are correctly calibrated and everything's working well. We do weigher sampler certification of folks that are actually weighing and sampling the milk. On the next slide. The board establishes a minimum producer, like I mentioned, minimum producer, wholesale and retail price. The minimum producer price is the federal order price, and that's established on a monthly basis by USDA. So that is pretty well set from a federal level. And then we actually have an over order premium that we usually adjust about twice a year based on the current market. Our biggest challenge is we'd love to give the farmers more money, but if we give them too much, what happens is it allows out-of-state milk to come in because they see that good price and they bring milk in, and we can't close our borders per se and not allow that milk to come in. So there has to be a balance between what we can, it's kind of they're going to have additional costs to bring it in, so we're going to kind of have a balance there so it doesn't get too high to allow that milk to come in here. Then on the wholesale price, that's really the dealer level. It's the minimum price that's established for the farmers plus their costs. That's audited once a year. The farmers have to bring their costs in. It's audited, and then the minimum is established by the average of their cost. So that meaning the average. So it's the federal order price, minimum over order premium, and then that's the minimum producer price. Then you add the cost of them, getting that milk, processing that milk, and delivering that milk to the retail establishment. And like I said, we bring them all in, and then we take the averages, and that's the minimum price. Now, certainly they can charge more than that, but they can't charge less than that. The minimum retail price is then similarly the cost of the store in handling that milk. Once they get it, is then added on top of that. That is the amount that is the lowest they can sell. Now, there's been a lot of argument over the years. Does this really help the farmers? I was in the camp several years ago where I said this did not help the farmers, but as I've gotten on the board, I've kept an open mind and see that it has helped the farmers. It's giving them kind of a guarantee. One thing that that has been seen in the fact that the size of the dairy herd, I know mine's a lot bigger, but the average size in Pennsylvania is about 86 cows, and that's the lowest size in the nation. And on top of that, we have one of the largest dealer networks. Some of them are small, but it allows them to be viable as well. So they're not having to, be undercut by somebody that's larger that kind of runs them out of business. Move on to the next slide, please. Then the over-order premium, as we mentioned, is part of that minimum producer price. And I talked about that a little bit earlier, but the over-order premium is minimum price, and part of the it eventually goes into each piece, so it carries the whole way through. So I guess I pretty much talked about this already. Move on to the next slide. As we mentioned, the board audits to ensure producers are paid correctly. The board staff audits every milk dealer that purchased Pennsylvania produced milk to ensure that farmers are paid correctly. And don't worry, we found out at times when they're not, and they have to make it right. Move on to the next slide. The Milk Producer Security Act requires that dealers provide security to ensure producers are paid. And as I mentioned earlier, with the bond, that's how it mostly works. They can also be part of a security fund if they put money in, and then that's kept in the treasury. Move on to the next one. And then certainly with the bulk tank and calibration truck, ensure accurate measurement of the amount of milk in the tank, which makes sure that the farmers are being paid correctly, and that the producers are not paid less than they should be, and the dealers, I'm not sure that that one's the case, but the dealers are not paid more than they should. They are allowed to pay more than they just, it makes sure that it's a fair accounting. Move on to the next one. Weigher sampler checks to make sure that all the proper procedures are being followed, ensures that producers are paid correctly, ensure dealers are paid correctly, and helps to ensure that the milk sanitation is done correctly. All right, that's about the PMMB. We also are advocates, I'd say, for, when I came on as chairman 2.5 years ago, I said, my job is to help Pennsylvania sell more milk to its consumers. So I embraced the marketing name, and I wanted to make sure that any of the processes were happening, were not limiting, the sale of milk, of good quality milk to the consumers of Pennsylvania. So, and the one thing I guess that was not mentioned in that the when the Milk Security Act was signed, that it established the Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board, there is essentially four pieces to that. It starts with the farmer, then goes into the dealer, then the retailer, and ultimately the consumer. So, all right, what is Milk PEP? So we're going to go from Pennsylvania to essentially a USDA monitored program. Milk PEP is a national milk marketing program created, funded, and overseen by the fluid milk processing industry. So as I mentioned earlier about Turkey Hill does sell ice cream, and that's their biggest product, but they also sell milk. In our area, it's probably the most common milk on the shelves is Turkey Hill milk because it's so close. So someone like Turkey Hill would be part of Milk PEP. Now you say, why is Rob Barley part of Milk PEP? Well, they do have some ad hoc members, and there has never been a farmer on, and we lobbied to get a farmer on, and I had the honor of being the first farmer to be part of the Milk PEP board. Since another one has joined, so there's two of us on the board, and our businesses are not contributing money. And when I say we're not contributing money, like Turkey Hill, when they sell their milk, they actually have a fee that is assessed on the milk that is then sent to the Milk PEP for their purposes, which is mainly to sell more milk. It was established in 1990. There's a 20-person board. Right now, it's a 20 cent per hundredweight, which brings in approximately 90 million a year. It's on Class 1 fluid milk only. Now, I probably needed to explain that. Milk is divided into 4 classes. Milk is still milk, so please, there's no difference between Class 1 and Class 4. It's the use of the milk. So Class 1 is fluid only, so essentially drinkable milk. Class 2 is yogurt and a few other things. Class 3 is cheese. Class 4 is butter and powder, skim powder. So that's the different classes. This is strictly on Class 1, so it's only milk that is sold as in the fluid form. It's collected by the industry, but is essentially paid by the consumer. So in reality, the Turkey Hills and the Rudders in our area, or whoever it may be, they are not, they're not paying it out of their pockets. It's coming from the consumer. USDA has oversight over this, as well as to do all the other check-off programs. There's the pork programs, certainly the beef what's for dinner. Those are all check-off programs. Moving on. You may have seen some of this stuff. They're really, their job is to have a strong consumer messaging program, and they have over the past 20 years, and promoting milk's benefits to Americans. They were the original starters of Got Milk, and I'll read through this, but Milk's PEP goal is more people to buy, serve, drink, and use milk, and to grow the category. And that's really their goal. All these folks are partners. So you'll look at some of them names you can recognize. It's really great to be part of this, to meet some of the folks that are part of these groups. There are a lot of good people, and the amazing thing about these processors, they really care about their farmers. I've seen that not only from the Pennsylvania level, but from the national level, that they really do care about their farmers. They want what's best for their farmers. Finally, there's been the relaunch, and I don't know that I did the best job with this slide trying to blow it up, but Got Milk had gone away, and it was just reintroduced. I think if I've been paying attention, there's been some Kay Ledecky, a swimmer, she swam across a pool with milk on her forehead. There's been some other folks that are doing fun things with milk, but really, what our focus here is through this pandemic, the purchase of fluid milk has really increased drastically. Now it's come back a little bit now, but milk is where people went because it was comfort, provided something for them that they knew that they could get the nutrition and what they needed out of it. So that's Milk PEP. So certainly open for questions about our farming operation as well as the PMMB or Milk PEP. And I don't know how much more time I have, but you have to cut me off. You have to cut me off.
Rob, your presentation has been absolutely phenomenal. The interest has been amazing. We have had so many questions. It's just been remarkable. I would love to go to Q&A. We have had so many questions. Unfortunately, we're going to have to move to the next.
Fine. That's fine. Yep.
That's okay, though, because the questions that we got at the beginning really touched on all aspects of farming. And I just want to say to you, on behalf of the National Society Descendants of American Farmers, thank you. Thank you for everything that you're doing. This has been such an in-depth, incredible. And what I am going to do is take some of these questions that we haven't been able to get to, and I'm going to follow up with you.
That sounds great. Yep.
We are absolutely going to keep in touch. We want to share the scholarship. We want to share the questions. I also want to keep in touch with you. But from the bottom of our hearts, this has been amazing.
And Rob, before
no idea.
Rob, before we go, we have one of our members, and he has a beautiful glass of wine, and he's going to toast you. So Glenn, Glenn, you unmuted?
Yes.
Look at this gorgeous glass. We're toasting you, Rob. We're toasting you. Next time we'll all have champagne.
Thank you for your very informative presentation. I'm a nuclear engineer, so your bailiwick is certainly 180 degrees from mine, and I'm always interested in learning new things, so I appreciate it very much.
And I don't imagine you're from Lancaster, though. The Martins in the Lancaster phone book are probably, they have their own section. But
yeah, there are a few actually. I come down from the Tichenors. The Martin is kind of an affectation that my great grandfather Roman Witkowski decided it would be easier to be a Martin.
Okay.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I have another appointment. It was great to see you all, and I'll see you hopefully at the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you again.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you, Janice Sue, for this opportunity. I recently wrote an article for the youth newsletter, and Janice Sue thought maybe I should share that with everybody, and it's about my experiences growing up on an apple farm in Western New York. And I'd like to share my screen with everybody, so I have some pictures I'd like to share as well. See if I can do this. Is everybody seeing this picture?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hang on just a minute. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say what an incredible program by Robert on Star Rock Farm. That was very educational. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you very much. And thank you, Lori, for bringing that program to us all. It was very enjoyable. My name's Jan Johnpier, and I live in Wilson, New York, which is up near the Canadian border on Lake Ontario in Western New York. I grew up in a small farming community north of Niagara Falls, New York, in a hamlet named Ransomville. Now, Ransomville, New York is located in the town of Porter in Niagara County, and it is about 400 miles northwest of New York City. And as of the 2010 census, had a population of 1,418. So it's a fairly small community. As Bill mentioned, my family goes way back to colonial America. And my family goes way back to the early beginnings of the hamlet of Ransomville. When my second great-grandfather, Henry Harrison Hand, came up from Mississippi in the middle 1800s, he purchased a large farm in Ransomville. That farm has been in our family ever since, and in the 1960s, my grandparents gifted 60 acres of the original farm to my parents, and my father planted an apple orchard. And I'm going to move to the next slide. If the picture you're looking at here is one of the apple trees back in the orchard, and you'll see there's a 1985 Honda 250 SX, and it still runs today.
Wow.
Okay, caring for apples is a lot of work. It is also very rewarding and, of course, tasty. The first thing my father did was insert a clay tile drainage system in the ground to help with proper soil drainage. In order to stay healthy, fruit trees need to be planted in soil with good drainage. If apple trees get too much water, standing water from poor drainage, it can cause root rot, and that can severely damage and kill the trees. So it is important to have proper drainage. It is also equally important to have proper soil pH. Now, some of you may know what pH is, and some of you may not. So what is pH? Well, pH stands for potential hydrogen, and that is a scale that measures ground acidity. 1 through 6 is acid level zones, 7 is neutral, and 8 to 14 is in the alkaline zone. Now, to demonstrate this scale, for example, car battery acid has a pH of 0.8, which is very acidic and can burn holes in your clothes and terribly burn your skin. So you want to make sure your ground soil is not too acidic. The closer you get to 7, which is neutral, the lower level of acid the soil will contain. Now, for apple orchards, you want ideally a ground pH range of about 5.0 to 6.8. Fortunately, the soil in the Niagara region naturally has a good pH, and this is due to being so close to the Lake Ontario. So soil acidity was not a problem for my father. There are areas, however, to where soil acidity is not good for fruit orchards. And before planting, you would need to try to lower the acidity level by mixing calcium carbonate, lime, quicklime, or wood ash into the soil. And some areas are just too acidic for fruit and apple orchards to thrive. My father planted several varieties of apples, including, and you've probably heard of a lot of these, Macintosh, or also known as Max, Cortlands, Ida Reds, Red and Golden Delicious, 20-ounce, and Empires. After the apple orchard was planted, it took about 3 to 4 years for the trees to grow enough to start producing fruit. Each spring, we had to fertilize the trees by tossing a mixture of nitrate, phosphorus, and potassium granules around the base of each tree. My father would watch the weather, and when the forecast called for upcoming rain, we would proceed with fertilizing each tree throughout the entire orchard. And of course, with the rain, the fertilizer granules would slowly release into the ground where each apple tree's root system would absorb the fertilizer. Nitrogen helps encourage vegetative growth, which of course is your leaves and branches. Phosphorus encourages root and blossom development. Potash, is responsible for the efficiency of the apple tree's natural disease resistance and helps support its overall health, kind of like an immune system for the tree. These were synthetic fertilizers that we used. Of course, fruit farmers still use these today, but however, many farmers are switching over to using organic or naturally derived fertilizers such as compost and age-rotted manure. And I know Robert spoke briefly about organic, and that is also a popular topic in fruit orchards as well. Each spring, the apple trees would bud and blossom with stunning pink blossoms. And let me show you a picture of what our orchard looked like in the spring. You can see that. It was just this sea of beautiful pink, light, delicate pink blossoms. And I do have a close-up of what the blossoms look like close up. Just very pretty. Our house was actually surrounded by the orchard. So we had the most beautiful view out of the living room picture window. You would look out and you would just see, you know, just the sea of pink blossoms everywhere. It was really beautiful. Now, each summer, we would have to thin the apples. And that, of course, is what many people may not know, is that when apples begin to grow during late spring, they sort of look like a bunch of green grapes, you know, kind of clumped up into little teeny apples. And they are small, and there's many of them, as you can see, and they're all bunched up on one little branch. As these little green apples grow, they get heavier, and some of them may fall off naturally. My father always waited for what he used to call the June drop, quote, to see how many apples would fall off the trees naturally and to assess the space between the apples. In order for apples to grow big, we had to remove or thin out the bunches so that each apple was about 3 inches apart. And that gives each apple room to grow and develop into a large, yummy apple. It took a long time to thin 60 acres of apples, let me tell you. But, you know, we had fun doing it. There was always a portable radio, water jugs, joking around, just having a good time. And this was a family affair. So we would get my sister, my cousins, sometimes my friends would come, and we would, you know, just have a good time out there, you know, thinning the apples. We would start around 8 in the morning each morning, and we would work up to about 12 noon. And then we would go up to the house for lunch. Now, my mother, of course, she would be out there thinning the apples with us, and she would leave the orchard around 11 a.m. And head up to the house to prepare lunch for all of us. After lunch, we would go back out and continue thinning the apples till around 4 in the afternoon or so, except on hot days, where after lunch, I would ask my parents if I could go swimming with my friends. And most of the time they'd say yes. If I behaved that week, I was allowed to go swimming. Some apple farmers spray thin their apples, which is a process of spraying a certain chemical on the trees that cause some of the apples to fall off. And how that works is the spray causes the stems to kind of dry out, and they become brittle, and then they break off that clump. So spray thinning is also an option. My father did this once in a while. However, he preferred to manually thin the apples by hand, as with spray thinning, you do risk the chance of having too many apples removed from the tree, and that can ruin your crop. I mean, you don't want to have all your apples fall off the tree. So let me move on to the next slide here. Okay. And of course, we had to spray the apples, and spraying the apples is to prevent insect and fungi damage, which is something that has to be done. Spraying helps protect the apples and the trees from disease and insects. In New York, farmers have to be certified to work with spray chemicals. My father was certified, and so he was the one who always did the spraying. We had a spray rig, which you can see in the picture. Now, this is not our spray rig. This is just a picture that I grabbed off the internet so I could show everyone, kind of what it looks like. My father's spray rig looked very similar to this. It was about the same size. And what you do is you fill the tank with water and add the spray powder chemical mixture. And then you drive through the apple orchard, and when ready to spray, you flip a switch and the spray motor turns on, and it kind of mixes it all together, and the spray shoots out both sides of the spray rig, as you can see in this picture here, onto the trees. And you can do 2 rows at a time because it does shoot out on both sides. And this is a fungi spray control. It controls fungi and also warm weather diseases, which can kill apple trees. Horticultural oil, lime, sulfur, and other insecticide sprays are used to control insects from eating and burrowing down into the apples. No one wants to bite into an apple and see a bug in there or have fungus in your apple. It's kind of gross. So it is important that fruit farmers spray their crops. My father would spray about once every 2 weeks throughout the entire season from spring to fall, just prior to harvest. He would have to watch the weather and make sure rain was not in the forecast. You do not want to spray if it's going to rain. Otherwise, the rain will wash off the spray or dilute it so that it is not as effective. So wind is also a factor to consider. My father had to feel the wind to make sure that it was not too windy to spray. If it is windy, the wind blows the spray all over, and the spray does not get on the apple trees. It goes everywhere else. Spray chemicals are rather expensive, so farmers always need to be careful about wind and rain when they're planning on spraying. Now, with spraying, let me go to the next slide here. This looks like something out of a science fiction movie. Respiratory protection is crucial for apple and all fruit farmers who spray. Apple farmers have to be careful when spraying that they don't breathe in the chemical toxic spray. So my father wore a face respirator while spraying, and his was very similar to this. His was an older model, but it looked very similar to this. The respirator has carbon filters in it that filter out the spray chemicals so that he could breathe clean air while spraying. And that's very important. It's extremely important that you wash apples before you eat them. It is never a good idea to pick an apple off of a tree and just eat it without washing it first. And I'll tell you why. Make sure you rinse it with water, wash off the spray, and towel it dry. The sprays that are used on orchards in high concentrations are toxic in high concentrations, and they should not be ingested. I mean, if you grab an apple off the tree and you just eat one apple, chances are it's not going to hurt you. But if you eat, a lot of apples and you just pick them off the tree on a regular basis, then you are putting quite a bit of spray chemical inside your system. And so it's always a good idea to wash it off. Now, there's the organic aspect here, and I'd like to talk about that for a minute. Even organic sprays need to be washed off. Keep in mind that organic is anything natural and out of the earth, like arsenic, which, because arsenic is a natural element out of the ground, it is considered organic. But it is also a poison. So many organic fruit sprays contain arsenic, which serve as a natural pesticide. And this is something that fruit farmers did back in the 30s and 40s. They would use organic sprays with the arsenic base. And then, of course, as time went on, it was, arsenic's not good for you. They'll come out with synthetic sprays, commercial sprays that weren't poison, but then later on now, they can be toxic, and some of them have been labeled as carcinogens as well. So whether it's organic or synthetic sprays, make sure you always wash your fruit. Grapes, this is the same thing with grapes. Always wash apple and all fruits before you eat them to make sure that those sprays are off. And just because it says organic doesn't necessarily mean that it's any safer. It just means that they've used natural organic derivative elements derived out of the earth as their spray products. The other thing that we had to do was trim and prune the trees in late winter. And trimming helps remove diseased or damaged limbs. It helps maintain a controlled height from which apples may be more easily picked, and develops a strong structure for fruit production and encourages new limbs to grow. Trimming also increases the amount of sunlight that shines into the tree, which helps the apples turn nice and red. If you never trim an apple tree, the tree will become thick with unruly branches, and the apples will eventually become smaller due to space limitations, and the color will stay green due to not enough sun getting into the tree. Let me move to the next slide here. So when you get a green apple, if you go to the store or the market, to a farmer's market, and you see, there's an apple should look very red. If it's gotten enough sunlight, and it should be a nice size like this. If you get an apple and it's got a lot of green coloring in it, then chances are it didn't get enough sun for it to turn red. And one way to help that is to trim out the tops of the tree so that more sun can get in. This is a picture of my father out in the orchard. He bought a three-wheeler, 1985, he bought a Honda 250 SX, and I was so happy and thought he bought it for me, but it was for the farm. And he would hop on the three-wheeler and ride throughout the orchard and check on the trees, see what needs to be done. Maybe this tree needs to be thinned a little more, or maybe that tree looks like it's getting some worms or some insect damage. So maybe we need to focus more on spraying this side of the orchard. He would also, ride around and check the ground with the three-wheeler. If there's a big, heavy, wet spot, he might put in some plumbing, some piping to pipe out some water that might be standing there. So the three-wheeler was for the orchard, but I have to tell you, I had a lot of fun riding on that thing. The next picture, if you look closely behind that apple tree there, you'll see our house. Our house was completely surrounded in the orchard. So no matter what window that you looked out of, you had these beautiful pink blossoms in the spring. And it smelled heavenly. It was just beautiful. Apple orchards, fruit orchards are beautiful. And of course, this is one of the apple trees in the fall. Up close, so you can see how loaded it is with beautiful apples. And these apples here are Ida Reds. So they're nice and red. And if you notice, if you look at the top of the tree, you'll notice there isn't a lot of thick branches up at the top, that the thick stuff is down below. That's because we trimmed out the top of the tree so that a lot of sun can come in from above. I do have a few statistics for you. According to the New York State Department of Agriculture, New York State is the second largest producing state in America, surpassed by the state of Washington. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Agricultural Statistics puts 2019's production numbers for New York State at 1.18 billion pounds of apples that come from over 40,000 harvest acres. That's a lot of apples. Sadly, around the year 2000, my father, late 1990s, I should say, my father got older. He's 94 years old, and he was not able to take care of the orchard anymore. And of course, family members have all moved on. He did try hiring some young kids and some people to come in to help do it, but he just got frustrated with that because, they don't do it the way he did it. And so the orchard eventually for about 10 years went unattended, and it became very unruly. And it would have taken an awful lot of work to try to get it back in shape to produce big, wonderful apples like it had done for years. So my father the apple orchard was cut down. And the land is still being farmed today. We have contracted the land with a local dairy farmer who's planting corn there every year for silage for his dairy. But it is sad that the orchard's gone because it was a wonderful time in my life. It taught me many things about working together. And of course, who doesn't love making apple pie and applesauce and all those wonderful things? So I hope that you found this interesting. I was very happy when Janice Sue asked me to share this with everybody. And I thank Janice Sue for giving me that opportunity. If anybody has any questions about farming, I'd be apple farming or apples in general, I'd be happy to answer a few questions if anybody has any.
Does weather have any effect on taste or on any variety of apples each year?
Yes, it does. If it's a real dry season, you don't get a lot of rain, then the apples don't grow as large and they tend to be drier and not as juicy. You know, when you take an apple and you bite into it, you get that real nice, juicy, sweet flavor from an apple. If it's a real dry season, the apples won't grow as large and they tend to be a little drier. And that's across the board with all varieties. Yes.
I apologize. Go ahead, Jan.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a really good one for you, Jan, and for everyone. Would everyone please share apple recipes? So Jan, do you have any great apple recipes?
I do. I don't have them with me, but I'd be happy to share them. My grandmother's apple pie was amazing. My mother could make it about as good. I don't know. My daughter and my husband say mine's as good. I'm not so sure. I think my grandmother had the market on the apple pie. It was just phenomenal. And I can remember coming home from school and coming in the house and the whole house would just smell, you know, like apple pie baking. We would make apple muffins, apple sauce, apple cookies, apple cake, you name it. I mean, apples are just a wonderful thing to bake with. We would even make baked apples, just, you know, put them in the oven and bake them, put a little cinnamon, allspice, you know, they were just an easy. We even made candy apples at Halloween time too. And of course there was always bobbin for apples. We'd have the old wash bucket in the garage and we'd fill it up with water and we'd put some apples in there and you'd have to put your head in there and grab an apple out with your mouth. I'm not sure that maybe we would do that today, but this was back in the 70s. So it was just a wonderful time growing up and it's just wonderful memories for me to have and I'm happy.
Thanks, Bill. Well, I'm going to thank you, Jan, so much for this magnificent on apples. It was quite interesting. So everyone, thank you so much. I am going to ask a couple of people. Nancy, would you like to bring greetings from the ambassadors? Let's unmute you. Hold on just a second, you're muted.
I would indeed, now that I'm sort of getting over the shock, and I'm very honored, Madam President National. Anyway, on behalf of the ambassadors, I really do want to welcome everybody. You know, the ambassadors are the face of our organization in every state, and they really work to keep everyone involved and in the know about our farmers organization. They're our greatest cheerleaders. They really are, and they're hardworking. But again, on behalf of the ambassadors, I welcome you and thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Excellent. Davina, would you please Registrar National give us a registrar report?
Yes. We have 1,048 members with 21 boards. So we have 1,069 with our 41 youth, and we also have 630 supplements honoring our ancestor farmers.
Oh, thank you, Davina. Thanks for all the hard work, Dee Dee. Maureen, you've already talked a little bit about the youth. Do you want to say anything else, ma'am?
I hope that all our ambassadors go out there and try to look for some more youth. We can always use some young, and they're the future of our nation. So please, you know, try to go out there as you're looking for new members, look for those that are a lot younger than we are. Let's put it that way. A lot younger than we are. Thank you all your input also for the newsletters, and we'll start to incorporate those. Hey there, Danny.
Oh, there's our number one youth.
Yep.
Hi, Maureen.
Hey there,
There's
Mr.
black
Big.
helicopters coming for you too.
Oh, no, yeah, you got that one.
I'm going to ask Rosalind. Rosalind Grunfield is our Director of Scholarships, and she's also 3VP. Rosalind, could you give us a scholarship update in a couple of seconds, in a minute?
Thank you, Janice Sue. The application for scholarships is on our website, and I encourage you to have our college students apply. The deadline for the spring semester applications is January 15th, but we want those applications to come in now so that we can start reviewing them and be ready to issue those scholarships January 16th. So please, please, tell everyone about the scholarships. They're open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. The application is updated and on our website, and we will take the applications today.
Thank you so much. Nancy, did you have your hand up? No, okay. Did I see any hands up? If not, Davina, would you please give us a benediction?
Yes. As Thanksgiving approaches, we give extra thanks for all our bounty. Thank you that we truly live in a land of plenty with the great expertise from our American farmers. How fortunate we are. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. Before I end this meeting, if you spoke before 10 o'clock and talked to all of us, please send me an email. I have a little bitty token gift for you. And then I will be sending, and those are my microphone pins that you can wear on your official ribbon. And then we will be sending challenge coins to Rob and Jan for their presentation. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for sharing your Saturday morning with us. And we will be doing this in January. So hugs and kisses, farmer style.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Love, love.
I do have a question for Registrar.
Yes, just hold on. She'll stay on.
Okay.
And Martha, stay on, please.
If you don't mind, I'd kind of like to hear the registrar question too. I'm always
Sure,
curious about that.
She's all yours, Davina. Hold on. They've got questions for you, Davina. Here, you can take over my computer. And then don't let them go yet. It's yours. It's yours. Wonderful. Oh, here. Would somebody end the recording? I guess we'll just leave it to record. Go ahead. Go ahead. Question?
Yes. Hi, it's Vicki Carmichael.
Oh, hi, Vicki.
Hi, my mother was a member as well, but sadly she passed away this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen any, maybe I just missed it, but I haven't seen any forms for reporting that. And I was also curious if you had any suggestions what I might do with her insignia.
Memorial membership.
Yes, memorial membership.
Vicki, your mother is the first death that we've known, the first death that we've heard about, and we are so sorry about your loss. We will send me just in an email and we will go ahead and we will put something in our next.
For sure.
We'll put it in the newsletter, but we will also honor your mother in our directory if that is acceptable with you.
Oh, sure. Yes, thank you.
And then I will talk with you later and we'll talk about what you can do with her insignia.
Okay.
Thank you for telling us.
And our heart breaks for you. Our heart breaks for Vicki.
Thank you. It was, yeah, very shocking.
Yes, too bad.
Very tough.
Who's next? Who had a question next?
Any other?
Charlene, you had a question?
No, I was largely staying on professional curiosity's sake.
That's all right. Eden has one.
Eden?
Eden, you're muted.
Yes.
There. I'm working on supplementals.
Okay.
Part of my proofs are reproductions from a book that describe a will. I don't have the actual will, but is that acceptable?
It is. It is.
Okay.
As long as, we can see the title page and the page number. Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you for asking. Any more?
Janice Sue,
Yes, ma'am.
Lori, you had mentioned that you're going to be sending a challenge coin off to Rob. Can we put that together with farmer recognition?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to recognize he and his family. So when you have an opportunity, if we could figure out how to do that together, that would be fantastic.
Perfect. And you will be getting a challenge coin also, Lori.
Okay, thank you. But I just want to figure out how to put the
We need to
recognition together with the challenge coin. That would be, I don't know how many certificates, or if we want to send one certificate, or how we want to do that. So I'm going to leave now and let you be with others, and you just let me know, keep in touch and let me know how you want to do it.
We will.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Great to see everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks again for everything. Any other?
You're welcome. It was fun.
So good to see all of you here, and let's do some more questions if you have them. It's a perfect time because